Hart. Welcome back to my channel. I'm building a 1932 Ford Roadster. Now I wanted a boat tail on this thing, so I'm running the hood from a 1940 Ford for the top section of this boat tail. Now if you're just tuning into this channel, let me catch you up to speed. I wanted a narrow car. I wanted a nice streamlined open wheel roadster. I had a motorcycle shop over on Gasoline Alley, and while I was over there, I was lucky enough to moonlight in some vintage racing shops, and that's where I fell in love with the early Indy boat tail roadsters. And we're not building a race car here, but that's sort of the inspiration for this build. I love the 32 Fords as much as anybody, and I wanted to maintain a lot of the features of the 32. You know, Ford had a couple prototype boat tail roadsters. We're not building a replica. Those cars were fendered and had some different things on them. Just kind of building what I want to build here, and it's my first hot rod build. I've built a lot of different things in my life, but this is my first car, and I'm super stoked about it. I'm really stoked about all the attention that this car is getting and all of your interest in this car. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing and all of that stuff. But that's what we wanted to do with this car. I really wanted a nice narrow car. So in the first episode, we got the boat tail on here. We bowed the frame rails in, got them matched up with the rear boat tail. In the second episode, we came in, realized that we wanted this body line to line up with the tail where we had the tail position. So I had to section it by 2 inches, take 2 inches out horizontally and drop this down. And I wanted this body work up on top of the frame. I wanted this smooth body work all the way down this thing. So I needed to get the body up on top of the frame. And that required sectioning this part, the cowl and the firewall, by 4 inches and bringing it in to get it up on the frame. So we got that there, and then in episode 3, we dropped the grill shell down to match the height of the cowl, and we sectioned the hood by 2 inches down to nothing on both sides to line the hood up. That changed our geometry, and we had to fix that geometry, and that leaves us where we are today. We're going to get back on the rear cross member. Now, I've got the stock 32 cross member, but my friend Dave suggested, he said, hey Jay, you're running a 40 rear end with a straight spring. Why not just run the later cross member that matches that spring? Because the 32 spring is radiused out, and I would have to modify the rear cross member. I can salvage this 32 cross member, and somebody who desperately needs it for their 32 will have this beautiful cross member. And my friend Scott just happened to have a later cross member. We swapped. And so I've got this thing here. We're going to get it in the car now. I'm so excited about it. Let's get started. Now the first thing we got to do is get all this body work off there and get that frame back up in the air so we can work on it. Okay, so we've got our 32 rear cross member sitting up here roughly where it came out. We've got our later cross member sitting up here that we're going to be putting in. Now we recorded a couple things about this rear cross member before we took it out. One of those things was that it is about 68 inches from the front of the K member back to this square mounting hole for the spring. Now it may be a little different in your car. That's what it was in this cross member when we took it out of this frame. But we're going to try to move this square mounting hole back with the new cross member. We're going to move it back about 6 inches and try to get a little more wheelbase on this car. Now I know there's a difference between the distance of the axle to the back of the spring on the later rear end as opposed to the 32 that we're replacing. That's okay, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to get a little more wheelbase, and it's all arbitrary because we're probably running an open drive shaft. And there's no wheel wells on this car that we have to try to line up. So, but one of the tricky things is, of course, there's a lot of different angles on these rear cross members, a lot of different angles going on here. And we know another thing about this cross member, and we know that it was level. We know that the surface of this spring mount was level to this part of the frame, at least on a different plane, but level. So when we put this new one back in, we're going to need to make this surface somewhat level to this part of the frame in order for it to work properly or to be in a proper position. But there's a lot of geometry going on here, and the good news is when we raised the back of this frame up and made it somewhat level with this part of the frame, now where we're going to mount to this top flange of the frame channel, we need to make a fold in this where it's going to mount. And that fold just has to be level with this spring mount now, which is good news, really. It helps the geometry a little bit. Not quite as much of a brain teaser, but it is very important to get this thing lined up. And before we do any of that, we have to make the back of this frame solid. It's flopping around all over the place back here. You know, it's not boxed in. There's no rear cross member in. There's no sort of bar holding it in place. We're going to take this big piece of channel, get it clamped up back here, measure off those 2 front cross members back to it, get everything nice and square back here so we can start with a square chassis. I'll get this stuff up on the table after I get this squared up, and we'll look at it and we'll see what kind of geometry we're dealing with here and where we need to start making some cuts. We've got this whole thing square, level, plumbed, centered, ready to go so we can start designing the cuts for our cross member and get that thing roughed in. Okay guys, I was getting ahead of myself here, didn't have the camera rolling. I get excited about this stuff and I just start cutting. But my lovely wife came out to lend me a hand. I'll show you what I've been up to here. Okay, I made a mark on my center string where I wanted the square hole for the spring mount to be. And I'm going to be able to transfer all of this, the shape off of this piece of aluminum. I'm going to be able to transfer that onto the cross member to let me know where to cut it. But before we do that, I have to take the cross member and get some flat planes on the outer wings of that thing so it'll mount flush up underneath this frame and keep our spring mount parallel to the frame so that they're both level but on different planes. So before I do that, I can't transfer anything until I get that. So I've come over here to the table, and like I said before, thankfully, this is level, and we need our wings to be flush with this, which is also flush with our frame. So I just took this square block, I put it up on here. Now I could have went and chucked this up in a mill and went over and made a scribe line, you know, could have done, we don't need to do all that. We're just making a fold and a cross member of a 1932 Ford hot rod. So you put this square on here, this nice block, nice square block, and you run this scale out with your scribe mounted to it, and it mounts really nice in this groove. It's a trick I use quite a bit, and you can come right out here, and then you can run your scribe along it, and you can see where you need to make this fold. Now I've just transferred it down because it doesn't care. It's the same line no matter where you lay that line. As long as you lay it at the same angle, you can transfer it down to where you need it to be to make the fold, and it's going to fold over and be parallel to this plane. So now we need that to fold down, so we're going to have to remove material here. And all I did was the same thing. I just came over here, did the same thing over here on this side. I laid my straight edge up on here, and I just transferred this line. And that shows me where the material I need to remove and where I need to make my fold, where I need to lay that down in order for this to land in the same plane as this. And then we'll be able to take my piece of aluminum, lay it across here with my frame, and mark right where it needs to be, and keep everything symmetrical. And we'll pattern off of this side and lay it on this side so we know that we're getting the same cuts. So we'll be removing all of this here. I think it's going to work. So we've got a nice straight line across our pattern. We're going to line this up at 74 because that's where we want our spring mount to be. Again, because that's 6 inches behind where the stock 32 spring mount square hole location was. So we'll get this at 74. And get this side at 74. double check. Okay, we're on it. Now we can follow this frame along, and this will show us right where we want to be. Now we can pop over here to the Beverly. Rip these sides down. Now, this is probably going to be a little bit big, so we're going to need to scribe and take about an 1/8 or 3/16 off either side to clear the wall of the frame, because we marked the outer side of the frame. But that's our pattern. Now we've trimmed our pattern down. See what we have. It looks like we have a really nice fit. So now we'll be able to transfer this onto the cross member. I'm gonna go ahead and get a rough cut on the end of this thing here. We don't really know where our final cut's gonna be, so I'm not gonna cut it too close, but I need to get this out of the way so we can make our cuts to make our fold. I'm thinking right about here. There we go. Now we got to get this side off. Maybe we can just use this for a rough pattern to let us know kind of where we're going. That's what I'm thinking. I think we can take this guy, roll it on over, and that'll show us roughly where we made that cut. And we can do the same thing here. Just kind of eyeball it. Because again, these are just rough cuts. We're not looking at anything nice here. Just trying to get some material out of the way so we can do some business. Trying to get a little material out of the way so we can do business. That tells us roughly where we need that one. So let's struggle to clamp this one in. This mark first. So you see where I'm cutting down here. Looks like we're somewhere in there. See if we can stop the drift. I doubt it. We'll probably drift. Softer. Pretty good, pretty good. Okay, we got this thing stripped down to fighting weight now. We got these big ends knocked off of it. We're gonna be able to come in, make our cuts, make a pattern off this side, transfer it to this side, have a nice symmetrical part before we fold these ledges over. Then once we get these things laid over, we will take the pattern that we scribed off of the tail and put it up on here, and that'll show us where our cut lines go to be able to fit this under the frame. I'm gonna be real excited when this thing gets mounted. This is a big step for me, and I'll be real excited when we get that done. But I'm gonna slow down a bit. It's late. You hear the crickets, you see the bugs. It's a really hot, humid Indiana night. And I'm gonna come back in the morning with fresh eyes on this thing. I think our plan is gonna work out just fine. But I'd rather slow down. You know, if you can slow down, you'll make a better part. You truly will. It's like the visual engineering I talked about in my last episode. Just sit and look at it for a little while. You really will make a better part. I was over at my buddy Brian's the other day. He had like 4 guys there. It was me and Josh and Scott and Brian, and 4 sets of eyes on his rear cross member that he was modifying for this incredible car that he's building. Beautiful car. And it made me realize, it was a good warm-up because it made me realize how much is going on with this thing. Trying to get your spring perpendicular to the ground and get your spring the right distance out for your axle, for your wheel placement. There's just a lot happening with this, and you got to really slow down and think about things. It reminds me of a story, though, I'll tell you before I call it quits tonight. There was a part that came in my shop when I was a young fabricator on Gasoline Alley. Guy came in, he had an experimental aircraft, and he came in with this foam core model of a fuel tank that he had made for this airplane. And it fit real tightly in the fuselage. There just wasn't a lot of tolerance around it. There was a lot of baffling systems in it. And I took that job on. I was really intimidated. And it was a fun job to do, but it was a tough job to do, to think my way through it. And I really had to go slow. It took several weeks to do. I about had the thing done. I had some Dykem on it where I was getting ready to put some filler bungs in, and I needed to clean some of that off, and that cleaner's really smelly. So I set it out back on this bench. And then some of the older guys came over and said, hey, let's go to lunch. We're going to Working Man's Friend. And if you've never been to Working Man's Friend on west side of Indianapolis, best hamburger in the world. But we go over there, we come back. I opened the back door of my shop. The scrappers got my tank. The scrappers took my tank. They probably got $5 for it at the scrapyard. 3 weeks worth of work for me. I was lucky enough to build that tank a second time, and I think I did a better job the second time. But I was horrified when that happened. You know, that's quite a young guy over there. So that was a lot of money and a lot of time wasted. But I'm going to let you guys go for tonight. I'll be back in here in the morning, and we'll get cutting on this thing and get it fit up on that frame. And I am really excited. It's going to be tough for me to sleep. Okay, so we're back out here this morning, ready to make some cuts in this rear cross member. And I've realized something. I'm glad I slept on it. So I'm going to want to drop this line here down just a little bit to give us a little room for the thickness of this material for this fold to go down. And what we're going to do is drill a couple holes right where we want the fold to be. Then we can transfer these holes over to this side, and that'll help out quite a bit. I'll pull the camera in a little bit and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so if we came in here and we just cut along these lines, what would happen is when we fold this part down, because remember, we're taking this wing and folding it over, removing material on both sides, back here in the corner of this mouth, the material is so thick that it would get in the way of itself in trying to close. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna come in here and we're gonna drill a couple holes right in the corner of this mouth that will not only allow a little room in our cut and drop this line down to the bottom of the drilled hole, we'll be able to transfer these holes over to this side and make sure that we're getting a fold that's symmetrical on both sides. So let's get going on that. So we're going to take our punch and line up where we want to put these holes. Same on this side. That looks like they're in line with our fold. This one might be off a little bit. Let's run that one again. That's where we want to be. Got a nice size punch there. pilot these in. I guess I should put these on instead of moving them out of my way, huh? And we will open them up, give them a little more thickness. Just taking them out to a 1/4 inch. There we go. Now, it'll be really easy for us to transfer these 2 holes over to this side. And we'll be able to check some measurements off of these other stock holes. Let's do that. Good idea to do this a few times just to make sure that your lines are in the same position, that everything is where you thought it was. Okay, I'm confident with that. Nice when you have big material, you can get a really good punch on. There we go. Now we know where we're going. We know where we're going here. Double check that look. Yeah, looking right. Having a compass around is a good idea. It's a very good, handy tool. I use this a lot. Every day. Every day I use this tool right here. Gets a lot of work. I use these, and I've got an old crummy set of calipers that I use to scribe lines all the time. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people do that. I didn't invent it. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. We've all used methods handed down to us from people who were smarter than us. I certainly have. I always try to credit my mentors for the things I've learned from them. I had a lot of wonderful teachers over the years. I had a lot of really great teachers, and I love to give them all a lot of credit. Now, okay, we know these lines. We need to move this line down to match the bottom of this, the radius of that hole. Move this down just a smidge, and then this side the same way. And then we know that we got to go level off the bottom of this from the table, so we'll create that here shortly. But we'll pattern this up once we get everything cut. That way we can transfer it, and we know that we've got symmetrical cuts on both sides. Not just symmetrical lines, but symmetrical cuts. Okay, we've got get the pieces out of this. We've got some really nice sharp edges. I haven't dressed them all. And it's nice to have those sharp edges when you're making a pattern like this, because we're just going to use our fingers. We're going to come across this thing here, figure out roughly how wide we need the top of this thing to be, because I want to use the spring mounting holes, the stock spring mount holes, to locate some of this stuff. You know, it's to transfer this over, you just have to be forward thinking here, because then when we flip this around, we'll be able to relocate it from these holes. So got to find out how far up we got to go to get a flat, somewhat of a flat bend on this. I'll tell you something funny. A while back, I got myself a nice new pair of scissors, and I asked my wife and kid, I said, these are mine. Please let these scissors be mine. Don't run off with them. Don't use them for some other craft. I need them in the shop, and I need good scissors. Well, I have no idea where those scissors are, but I guarantee they're laying right next to some craft, and that's okay. That's okay, because life is short, so am I. Easier if I trim this down just a little bit. It would have been easier. But I can get myself out of this mess. See, and I'm just pushing down on these sharp edges of this here so we can get this pattern. And that'll tell us where we're at, because we're going to line this ends of these up where we drilled our hole and drilled our hole. We'll be able to see that in this paper, and we'll be able to see these holes, which may not be perfectly symmetrical, and that's why we're trying to locate as much as possible off of this so that we know we've got it right. And I'm pretty sure we've got it right. So we can see all of our angles, and we know where those pieces lie. Now we just need to cut that out. Okay, I'll show you a little trick here. I've got a set of gasket punches, and here's a 1/4 inch. That's the size we drilled this hole, and we'll be able to transfer that over to that perfect 1/4 inch mark. But let's say you don't have a set of gasket punches or leather punches or paper punches or whatever. Everybody has a set of sockets. And this is just an old trick I watched guys use for years. You can take a nice socket, put it on your hole. Now some people will say, oh Jay, I would never treat my sockets that way. Well, you just tap around the outer edge of it, and it'll knock your hole out. You just got to put it on a nice hard surface, line it up with where you need it to be, and you're just tapping around the outer edge and making sure that you get it through all the way around. And it'll knock your hole out just fine. That's what you need. And you can do it with every size. Here's another 1/4 inch one right here. And if you don't want to do it to your good sockets, well, doesn't everybody have an old set of sockets? If you're building an old car, I'm going to guess that you're a hoarder. And you probably have trouble throwing away any sort of tool. And maybe you just don't have good friends and you don't want to give them away. So maybe you just keep them around. Well, this is a good good reason to keep them around right here. There we go. That'll get us where we need to be. Take this guy over here and we'll just kind of eyeball this first and see what we got. We go this way. Right? Right. Let's see how close we are or how far off we are. Not bad. Not bad at all. There. I think this is a good place for us to be. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this. That's it. So we could get some angle finders out and stuff like that. It's just not necessary because we know what we're looking for here. We're looking for these wings to fold down and be level, and for them to have the same distance, be symmetrical, and we're going to be able to lay something across it and we'll know if we got it right or if we need to grind these and bring them down further. But I think we're going to be right where we need to be. We're going to be able to test it. It's just going to be an easy test for this. So I think we're ready to cut. Okay, so we've gotten lucky here. We've created a ledge on both sides of this thing. We can sit the level right up on that and have a look, and we're looking really good. Got a little material we'll scribe right here. Little material to sand off of this side. This side's really good. Sand a little bit on this side. Just this little bit of material right in this corner. And we'll be ready to fold this baby. I've decided to make one last mark before we fold this in, and I just lined the paper up. I folded it back to where we can see the top line on this side, and I'm going to line it up a little better with the holes that we drilled and get a nice line of knowing where I need to fold that. And then we're going to transfer that same onto this side just to know that we're really getting a nice symmetrical part. Like I said, I just like to slow down and make sure that we're doing things right here. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to back up and do it again. I really don't want to do this again. Not right now, because I really want to get it on the car. So we can set our rear end on it, put a spring in it, and see what we have. All right, we're ready to fold. So I'm actually going to go ahead and scribe a line across this because my MAP gas is going to burn this off. We're just going to be using a little MAP gas torch. Put a little heat in this, fold it over. To be honest, it's probably not necessary, but it'll make it easier if we do. It'd be nice to be able to see the line that we know we're supposed to be folding on. Right there. Okay. And this doesn't require a lot of heat. It doesn't even have to be cherry red. You just get it soft. Got this side kind of roughed in. Now let's get over here. Okay, we're looking good here. Got this all cleaned up, level. We're hanging out on the ends here just a little bit. We'll squeeze this in with the clamp, get a tack on all 4 corners, then come back with the level and see where we're at. We're gonna get the offset out, clean this up, maybe come in here with the porta blaster and run it down these seams just to give us a nice clean area to weld. So we got to get this cross member welded up, and I love working on this car outside. I love being outdoors. I like building a car under the station carport, pump cover, if you will. But it's really warm in Indiana this time of year. It's very, very humid. The corn's doing its thing, and there's a lot of corn flies. Every so often, we'll have a year where there's just a lot of corn flies. If you're not familiar with corn flies, some people call them sweat bees. The cute little bee-looking thing, but they will drive you insane because they're just all over you. Their love for corn is very necessary. Their love for people, not so necessary. So I'm gonna spoil myself a little bit and go in here in the AC and get this part welded up. Here you can see that we're up over 90 degrees. I've got this part in here. I've got it clamped up because it spread just a little bit, and this will help us get it tacked. See that? Pull that in. We'll get a tack on either side. Do the same on this end. Then we'll get it back out, make sure that it's level before we stitch it all up. I left my helmet over at my buddy Brian's the other day, but my father-in-law, he loaned this. Some people don't have great in-laws. My father-in-law is amazing, and he's a welder. But he loaned this helmet to my sister-in-law during the solar eclipse, and it just sort of stayed over here. And I used it last night a little bit, but we're gonna put some time on it right now. So since I don't have my helmet, I got to run my cheaters under this thing. And I'm running some 3/32, and this is S6, 70 S6. So I'm going to stay focused on this one side. I've got a couple cold tacks on here. I didn't want to get too much heat because I don't want to draw this top down. Now we can come to this side and we'll see that this is spread out. I'll be able to get a clamp on it now and pull this side in. There we go. Here, that's fine. We can do it. There we go. Now we can stitch this thing up. But let's get this end square. And once again, we'll bring this side in. Probably ought to put these on. There we go. Now let's see where we're at. I don't know if this table is level. Looks good. Now where are we here? Oh yeah. We're right on it. Right on it. So we'll go ahead and stitch this up. See, we're just kind of crisscrossing back and forth, running that same puddle just to fill that gap. That's why we got this big rod out. I've had this filler rod sitting around a while. It's always good to clean it off. You know, try to clean your part up as good as you can. But we created a couple gaps by trying to get these level, having to raise this up a little bit. That's okay. I keep forgetting to put my cheaters on under the helmet. My cup is too small for this weld, but I haven't quite pulled all the stuff out of storage before I came into this little shop. It's the only cup we got for today, so it'll be just fine. It's nice to keep some bits around so you can rest your hand where you want it to be. Finding a good position to TIG weld is kind of an important part of the job. Okay, we've got our rear cross member all stitched up now. It's sitting perfectly level, exactly where it was before we started to weld. Now, we're going to be able to take our pattern that we made off of the back frame rails here, line this up with the center spring mount hole, and get these outer ledges trimmed off so it sits up underneath the back of this frame. Now, once we get that there, we'll have it mounted. We may have to add a little bit to the back corner of this to get them bottom mount to the bottom rail of the frame. We may need to take a corner off the stock piece here and add it to this cross member to get a mounting pad for the bottom. We don't really know yet because we don't know how we're going to box this in. We may figure out that we're going to box this in a way that we don't need to add anything to it, that it all works out just the way that we have it trimmed off. But either way, we're going to be able to get this mounted up underneath here. We're going to be able to get the rear end under it with maybe one spring, and that'll help us determine what the ride height's going to be in the back. Then we can move on to getting that front axle dropped, which is going to be a huge step in this project. Okay, we got a little bit of an issue here. You can see the side of the square hole's been worn out a bit, but we can see all three square sides plus both corners here. So we're just going to build this up a little bit and file it back, get that square. Then we're going to create a peg that's centered in this square that comes up that'll help us locate this piece to trim our edges. Okay, we got this hole prepped. We're going to get it welded up. I've got an aluminum backer here. So when you sit this down in here and you weld, it'll keep that puddle from falling through. Okay, we've got our square hole all welded up, filed, fits the bolt very nicely. We need to get a center on this thing. Just take a little piece of aluminum, stick it up in here, and we'll scribe around it, get our opening. Then we can take it, run corner to corner, both ways diagonally. Then we'll be able to punch a hole, drill a hole, and that'll help fit our bolt up, centering bolt up through here, so we can lay this over it and mark it each end. Okay, we've got a little square washer made up here. We're just going to take a lag bolt and throw it up through here. And the square washer is going to help hold us in place, hold this in center. Well, if I can hang on to it. And you know, we're not doing anything super precision here anyway. Again, it'll probably be straighter than it ever was from the factory. So, there we go. Now we've got a center mark, centering post. We can drill this material, and we know where we're going to know where this goes. Okay, I lost my punch. Got her back. There we go. Now we know this thing's going to land where we want it to land. All we have to do is make our cut just through there, and we'll be able to get it square off the face of this. Marked and ready to cut. Well, this is exciting stuff right here. I've been waiting to see this for a while, and so have you. So let's see what we've got. Does this thing fit up in here or no? That's beautiful. We've got to figure out where center is on it. Do a little measuring, but we'll go ahead and try to clamp this thing in place. Just something to hold it. Oh wow, that is cool. It looks crazy. Just how slender. That looks wild. Yeah, I can see we're a little off here. Let's move this out a bit. Let's move that one in if it can go. we'll have to get our string out and see how we did on the wheelbase. We're moving it back the way we wanted. That looks a little better. Let's have a measure. Okay, let's get this thing squared up. Okay, rear cross member all clamped in, and believe it or not, when we first put this in and put the clamps on it, and I just did a couple of measurements up to the front of the chain numbers, it was dead on right where it needed to be. Now, I ran a string down it, and I went at different intervals at each body mounting hole on both sides to make sure that string was centered. We're all good there. Then I took this peg and I ran at each body hole diagonally all the way up, moving this up several times just to make sure that it's dead on. It's dead on. Now, we wanted to get some wheelbase stretch in this thing. I was shooting for 74, remember? And we are at 73, which is totally fine. That's 5 inches of stretch in the wheelbase. I'm totally happy with that. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we don't have a wheel well. You know, we're running an open shaft. It can be wherever we want, but taking it from 106 to now at 111 is great. So now we need to get this rear end mocked up, and I'll get one spring on it. I'll make a block that is the width of how many springs we think we're going to run. I'll start with all the springs. We'll get it set up under there with some mock-up wheels, and we'll see how this frame is sitting. I'm super stoked about all this. It's really great. Here, I'll give you a look around it real quick. How narrow that is. I really love the way this looks. I truly do. Like I said, we ended up right at 73, which is wonderful. So let's get this rear end mocked up and thrown under it so we can see what this frame is going to look like on the ground. Okay, so I measured all of the other springs minus the lower spring. Took that width and made this wooden spacer. We've got the rear end together. I made this spacer. I made the radius match this spring, not the other spring, so it would fit on there nicely. So here we are. It's ready to drop down on there. I'm super anxious to see this. This is a big step. It is incredibly hot outside. This has been a tough day, but I'm so excited to see what this is going to look like. Let's do it right now. Well, I'm super happy, if you can't tell. I love all the spacing. The spacing's great on this thing. It's going to work out. I mean, it's going to be perfect. And everything's going to be great. I was so worried about it because I've never done this before. So trying to build something that's kind of radical in the back here, I guess, and not really doing this before and not knowing if the suspension's going to work out fine. You know, this is with stock shackles. This is with all the springs. This is where it'll be. And so it's very tunable. I'll be able to take it down a little bit if I want. I don't know what height that is, but we're getting ready to find out. But I'm very, very happy. Very happy. Well, I'm not going to lie. This was a little more work than I thought it was going to be. And it took a little more time than I thought it was going to take. And it required a little more thought. But that's okay. We slowed things down, and we ended up with a great product in the end. We're sitting at about 10 inches right now in the rear. I went ahead and leveled it out so we could see it. We're sitting at 10 inches in the front. And remember, that's with the stock shackles, and that'll be with the stock springs. Now, I don't know how accurate this method is, but a lot of the well-seasoned hot rodders around here, they taught me this trick. They said, put the lower spring in, make a spacer for the rest of the springs you're going to run, and that'll show you roughly about where your car is going to ride once you get all the weight on it and all the springs in it. So I know we're in a tunable position here to put it anywhere we want. I can lower it some more. I can raise it up. So I love right where it's at right now. Maybe that'll change. We'll see. But I was going to put the body work on it so we could all have a look. But you're going to have to wait until the next episode. Please do me a favor. I really appreciate you liking and sharing my page and subscribing to this channel. It means a lot to me. I'm blown away by the interest. And I've had calls from people around the country that I haven't talked to in years. They're like, Jay, I'm so glad you're building a hot rod. What took you so long? I don't know what took me so long because I'm having a blast doing it and I'm having a blast sharing it with you. But, you know, if you have any suggestions about maybe what I ought to do next, leave some comments. Tell me what you think I ought to do next. Maybe I'll come back here and do some of the body work. Maybe we'll do a little more chassis stuff in the front. We have plenty to do. Maybe I'll just weld up the firewall and the cowl. Who knows? We'll figure out what we're going to do. Maybe we ought to set the tail back up on here and start figuring out what our doors are going to be like. But either way, please leave me those suggestions. It's so hot out. It's so hot out. These last few days have been brutal working out here. My shirt probably weighs another 20 pounds of sweat. And even though I don't need another 20 pounds on me, it's hot rod night over at Denny's. And my buddy Ron has made up some buffalo chicken sandwiches. So I'm going to go find out what that's all about. And I'll share it with you here in just a moment.
Section the car because you're short, but I have no idea why you narrowed it because you're fat.